The moment I loaded into 5 Nights at Freddy's, I thought, okay, how bad could it really be? I mean, it's a game about watching cameras and shutting doors, right? Nothing I haven't seen before. I even kind of laughed to myself, thinking this is what people are terrified of. This is the big horror legend, but then something felt different, even before the game really started. The screen just sat there humming, that flicker of static and the low buzz of the fan, and I don't know why, but my stomach dropped. Like that sound was already warning me, like I wasn't supposed to be here. I kept telling myself, relax, it's just pixels, it's just code. But the office felt way too real. The way the shadows sat in the corners, the tiny little details, even that squeaky little fan on the desk. It was like the game knew exactly how to make you feel trapped. Not in a giant haunted castle, not in some creepy forest, but in the smallest, most ordinary little room, and somehow that was scarier. And then came the call, you know the one, that cheerful little voice, almost too casual, like, hey buddy, welcome to your new job. But the more he talked, the worse it got. He's joking about lawsuits, murders, children going missing, and he says it all like it's nothing. Like, oh yeah, totally normal stuff, just keep an eye on the cameras, you'll be fine. And I remember sitting there thinking, why does this guy sound like he knows I'm not going to make it? The more he explained, the tighter my chest got. The way he described them, the animatronics, like they weren't just machines, like they had habits, personalities, and then the part that really got me, they wander at night. I swear, when he said that, the whole room around me felt colder. I leaned closer to the screen, just staring at those grainy black and white cameras, and there they were. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, standing perfectly still on that stage, smiling that empty smile. My brain kept whispering, it's fine. They won't move, not yet, but I couldn't shake the feeling that they were already watching me, that the longer I stared at them, the more real they became. And here's the thing, I could have shut the game off right there. No one was forcing me to play, but something about it wouldn't let me quit. Like when you drive past an accident and you can't help but look, even though you know it'll mess you up. That's what it felt like, curiosity mixed with dread. Minutes ticked by, nothing happened, just the static hum of the cameras, the buzz of the lights. I even relaxed a little, but the silence wasn't comforting. It was heavy, too heavy. My fingers drummed on the desk, waiting, listening, because I knew eventually something had to break that silence. And then it did, a tiny sound so faint I thought I imagined it. A creak, a shuffle. I pulled up the cameras again, eyes darting from feed to feed, but the stage was exactly the same. All three of them still there, still smiling, still waiting, but that sound. I know I heard it, and that's when it hit me. This wasn't going to be a game about running or fighting or shooting. This was going to be a game about waiting, about watching, about sitting in the dark and never knowing what was coming next. And that first night. That's when everything started to go wrong, asterisk at first. I'll be honest, I was almost disappointed. Nothing was happening. I kept flicking through the cameras, clicking from room to room, just static. And shadows. The stage looked the same, Freddy still grinning, Chica frozen, Bonnie staring like a mannequin. My brain started whispering, see, this isn't so bad, people exaggerate. I even leaned back in my chair, laughed a little, trying to shake off the nerves. Maybe I'd survive the first night easy. Maybe this whole game was just hype. But then out of habit I checked the stage again. My stomach dropped. Bonnie was gone. I blinked hard, like maybe the screen glitched. Maybe I clicked the wrong feed. Nope. Freddy and Chica were still there, but that left side of the stage was empty. And it wasn't empty a second ago. That's when the panic hit me. My eyes darted to every single camera, clicking like a maniac. Dining area, empty. Backstage, empty. Pirate Cove, still quiet. Where was he? I could feel my pulse in my fingertips, and then I caught it. Just for a split second in the West Hall, something moved. That purple blur of fur half hidden in the grainy static. My throat went dry. I whispered out loud, "Nope, nope, nope," like saying it would somehow stop him from moving closer. But here's the messed up part. He wasn't even doing anything, just standing there, still as stone, but that stare, it was like he knew I was watching, like he wanted me to look at him. I leaned closer to the screen, squinting, almost forgetting this was just a game, and then the screen flickered. Bonnie was gone again. I swear my whole body froze. I couldn't even breathe, because that meant he was closer, somewhere near me, somewhere I couldn't see. The room around me felt different too. My headphones picked up a faint hum, like distant static, and underneath it footsteps, slow, heavy, uneven. I yanked the camera back to the office, slammed the lights on. Empty. Nothing there, but I couldn't shake it. That sound wasn't coming from the game. At least it didn't feel like it was. It was too real, like someone was walking just behind my chair. I actually glanced over my shoulder. That's how deep in this game I already was. And the worst part, the clock on the screen said it was only 1 a.m. 1 a.m. I laughed nervously, like, okay, I can handle this. Just 5 hours, just 5. But it didn't feel like hours. Every second dragged out longer than the last. I clicked the cameras again, back and forth, until finally I saw him right outside the West Hall corner, closer than ever, his face filling up the screen. I nearly dropped my mouse, and suddenly I realized the rules. This wasn't about watching anymore. It was about surviving. The game wasn't testing my reflexes, it was testing my nerves. And my nerves, they were already shot. I hit the light again, the door button ready under my finger. Nothing. Empty hallway. Click the camera. He's gone. Back to the stage. Nope. Kitchen. Nope. West Hall. Nope. That's when the noise started again. Louder this time. Banging. Like someone slamming on the walls. Closer. Closer. I don't care how tough you think you are when that sound hits in complete silence. Your whole body just locks up. I was gripping my chair so hard my knuckles went white. And then bang, right at the door, Bonnie's face inches from me, staring through the glass, teeth bared, eyes glowing, filling the screen like he was about to break through. I slammed the door shut so fast my finger actually hurt. My whole body shook, adrenaline rushing like I just ran a mile, and then silence. I sat there, breathing heavy, staring at the door like it might burst open any second. Seconds ticked by, then minutes, nothing. Finally, I laughed nervously, whispering, okay, I survived. That's it. That's the scare. But deep down I knew that wasn't the end. That was just the beginning. Because Bonnie leaving the stage wasn't the real nightmare. It was only the first warning. The real horror was still waiting in the dark. Asterisk that silence after Bonnie left. It wasn't comforting. It was worse, because silence in this game doesn't mean safety. It means something is hiding, waiting, ready to move when you least expect it. I tried to calm down, leaning back in my chair, telling myself, you close the door, he can't get in. You're fine, but the thing about 5 nights at Freddy's is you're never fine. Even when nothing is happening, your brain is working overtime, filling the quiet with things that aren't there. And then I heard it. At first, it was so faint I thought it was part of my imagination, a soft, dragging sound like footsteps. Not quick, not rushed, slow, heavy, one step at a time, like whoever, or whatever, was moving wasn't in a hurry. I froze, my eyes locked on the monitor, fingers hovering over the light switches, my heart pounding in my throat. Click, the hallway light, nothing, click. The other light, empty, cameras, flicker, static, click, click, click. No Bonnie, no Chica. Freddy still grinning on stage like nothing's wrong, but the sound didn't stop. Thud, 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 closer, I whispered, please, please don't. Like saying it out loud would make the game show me mercy. Spoiler, it didn't. I clicked the West Hall camera again, and for half a second, there he was, Bonnie. Standing in the grainy shadow, frozen like a statue. I leaned in closer to my screen, squinting, and my chest tightened. His head wasn't still. It was tilted just slightly, just enough to make it look wrong, like he was curious, and then static. Camera cut out. The sound of footsteps stopped. You know what's worse than hearing footsteps? When they stop. Because now you don't know where he is. I sat there completely still, afraid to even breathe. My hand hovered over the door button, my finger twitching. I clicked the light again, still empty, other light empty, back to the camera feed, static, static, static. Every screen worse than the last, and then it happened, bang, right on the wall beside me. I jumped so hard my chair scraped the floor. It didn't sound like it was coming from the game anymore. It sounded like it was coming from my own room. My whole body went cold. The camera flickered back on, and Bonnie's face filled the frame. Those eyes, bright white glowing, staring into me like he knew I was there, like he wasn't just looking at the camera. He was looking straight at me. I slammed the door button, the metal gate crashing down, sealing me in. My heart was beating so fast I thought I might actually pass out. And for a second I sat there, breathing hard, staring at the door, waiting for him to bang again, but he didn't. The hallway light flickered, empty, gone. I whispered, okay, okay, I did it. I survived him again. But my hand was shaking too much to even grab my water. And that's when I looked up at the top of the screen. 2 a.m., only 2 a.m. That realization hit harder than any jump scare. I had 4 more hours to go, and I was already falling apart. Then I noticed something else, the power meter. It was draining way too fast. I hadn't even made it halfway through the night, and I was already burning through way more power than I should have. Every light, every door slam, every camera check. It all chipped away, and now the bar was dipping lower and lower, like sand slipping through my fingers. I tried to calm myself down, tried to use the cameras less, but paranoia doesn't listen to logic. Every creak, every hum, every flicker made me check again. And every time I checked, the power meter fell lower. That's when I realized this game wasn't just about the monsters. It was about me, about my self-control. Could I resist the urge to check the cameras? Could I sit in the dark, silent, and trust that I was safe? The answer was no, because just when I told myself not to, just when I tried to sit still and wait, there it was again. That sound, but this time it wasn't footsteps. It was laughing, faint, distorted, like a voice buried in static. And that's when I knew Bonnie wasn't the only one moving now. Asterisk, the moment I saw that little power bar sinking lower and lower, I knew I was in trouble. It wasn't just a game mechanic anymore. It felt like a countdown to my death. Every flick of a light, every time I shut a door, every second I stared at the cameras, it was all draining away, and there was no way to get it back. At first, I tried to be careful. I told myself, okay, no more panicking. No more checking every 5 seconds. You can do this. But have you ever tried to sit perfectly still in total silence, knowing something might be creeping closer with every passing second? It's impossible. My brain wouldn't let me relax. I clicked the light on the right side. Nothing. Off again. Check the left side. Empty. Back to the cameras. Stage still. Freddy and Chica. Kitchen static, but no figures. Pirate Cove. Curtain slightly open. Wait. Had it always been that open? I stared at Pirate Cove, my heart climbing up my throat. The curtain swayed just barely, like something behind it was breathing, and I remembered the phone call, that voice, casual, almost joking. Oh, and don't forget about Foxy. He doesn't like being watched. I whispered, no, 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 don't tell me he's moving too. I clicked back to another camera, then back to Pirate Cove, open wider. The sound of the fan in the office suddenly felt louder, drowning in the silence. My hands were shaking, trying to resist checking again, because I knew. Every extra second on that camera was killing my power, but I couldn't stop myself. Click, and there it was. Foxy, just peeking out, one eye glowing in the darkness of that little cove. I slammed the monitor down, whispering, nope, not dealing with that, not right now. But Damage was already done. The power bar dipped lower, 40%, and it wasn't even 3 a.m. yet. I tried to breathe, tried to think. Maybe if I just sat still, didn't touch anything, I could save enough to last the night. But then another sound, footsteps, this time faster, heavier, not Bonnie's slow, creeping thuds. This was urgent, sprinting. I panicked, cameras up again, flipping wildly. Searching, there, East Hall corner, Chica, staring, mouth open, like she was ready to burst through the door. I hit the right light empty, checked again gone. I felt my whole body tense. Where was she? I flipped the camera again. Static, static, static. And then, with no warning, a loud clattering sound from the kitchen, pots and pans crashing. It echoed so loud in my headphones I ripped one ear cup off just to make sure it wasn't happening in my own house. That's when I realized I had two problems now, Bonnie on the left, Chica on the right, and Freddy's still smiling on the stage, like he was just waiting for his turn. My power meter was draining faster and faster. Every door slam, every panic flick of the lights, it was bleeding me dry. 35%, 30%, and then, the moment I feared most. Office went quiet, too quiet. I slowly clicked the West Hall camera, static, flicked to the East Hall, static, backstage, static. Almost every feed was glitching. That's when I saw it. Two glowing eyes, not Bonnie, not Chica, different, deeper, almost golden. They blinked once, and the screen cut to black. I ripped the monitor down, breathing heavy, staring into the darkness of my office. Lights on, nothing. Other side empty. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. My power bar now read 25%. The clock. Only 3 a.m. And the worst part, I hadn't even seen Freddy move yet, which meant the real nightmare hadn't even started. By the time the clock ticked past 3 a.m., I was already falling apart. My power was slipping away, my nerves were shot, and every single sound felt like it was meant to push me over the edge. The fans hum, the distant static, the occasional shuffle in the halls. They weren't just background noise anymore. They were countdowns, warnings. I tried to focus. I told myself, okay, 1 hour at a time, survive until 4 a.m., then you can breathe. But 5 Nights at Freddy's doesn't let you breathe. Because that's when the cameras started acting strange. Click, static, click, static, click, static. Almost every feed broke down into distorted white noise, the kind that burrows into your ears and makes your skin crawl. And then, in the middle of all that distortion, a figure appeared, not Bonnie, not Chica, not even Foxy. It was Freddy, but something about him was wrong. He wasn't on the stage anymore. He wasn't where he was supposed to be. His face filled the screen, closer than any of the others had ever been. The grain of the camera twisted his features into something half human, half mechanical. And then he blinked. I ripped the monitor down, heart pounding, but the room was empty. No eyes at the door, no movement in the halls. Okay, I whispered to myself. Maybe it was just a glitch. Maybe I'm seeing things. I forced myself to check again. This time he wasn't there. The stage looked normal. Everything looked fine until it wasn't. The screen flickered again, and out of nowhere, another face appeared. Golden, hollow, those empty black sockets staring back at me like a void. Golden Freddy. I didn't even realize I had stopped breathing. His face took up the entire screen, filling the office with this oppressive weight, like the air had been sucked out of the room. It didn't feel like a character in a game anymore. It felt like someone, or something, was actually watching me from inside the monitor. And then, just for a split second, the words flashed across the screen. It's me. I froze. My whole body went cold. I couldn't move, couldn't even think, just staring at those words like they were meant for me. Then the camera cut out. Total darkness. The office lights flickered, the fan stuttered, and I swear, I could hear breathing. Not in the game, not in my headphones, in my room, right behind me. I spun around in my chair so fast I nearly tipped it over. Empty. Of course it was empty, but my brain wouldn't believe it. I could feel the weight of those eyes on me, even with nothing there. I turned back to the screen, hands trembling. My power bar was down to 15%. The clock, 4 a.m., 2 hours left. 2 hours with no guarantee I could make it. The doors felt useless now. The lights barely helped. And every time I opened the camera, I half expected that golden face to jump out at me again. I tried to steady myself, tried to laugh it off. Okay, that wasn't real, just part of the game. Just an Easter egg, right, but deep down I knew it wasn't just that, it felt personal. Every creak in my house, every flicker on the screen, it all blurred together until I couldn't tell what was real anymore. And that's when the hallway light flickered on its own. I hadn't pressed it. The bulb glowed for just a second, and standing there in the West Hall was Bonnie again. His face inches from the door, no movement, no sound, just staring. I slammed the door shut, and as the gate came down, the power dropped again, 10%. No, I whispered, shaking my head, because now it wasn't about lasting 2 hours. It was about lasting 2 hours with barely any power left. And I knew exactly what was waiting for me if I failed, because Freddy, he was still out there, still waiting for his chance to move. And when he did, I wouldn't be ready. By the time the clock hit 4 a.m., I was a wreck. My hands were shaking, my throat was dry, and I couldn't tell if I was sweating because of the game or because I genuinely thought something was in the room with me. My power was down to single digits, and I still had 2 whole hours to go. 2 hours. Every choice felt impossible. Do I check the cameras and risk draining the last scraps of power? Do I sit in silence and risk something creeping up on me? Either way, it felt like I was already dead, and then the laughter started. Low, glitchy, distorted. Freddy, I froze. I hadn't even seen him move, but the sound told me everything I needed to know. He was out, he was loose, and he was hunting me. The phone guy's words echoed in my head. Freddy tends to become active in the dark, which would have been fine, except my office was already dim and my power was circling the drain. I clicked the cameras, desperate to track him. Kitchen static, dining area empty, show stage abandoned. Every room flickered with that awful grain until finally I saw them. 2 glowing dots, eyes, Freddy's eyes, staring at me from the back of a pitch-black room. I felt my chest tighten. He wasn't moving fast. He didn't have to. He knew my power wouldn't last. All he had to do was wait. 5 a.m., 1 more hour. I leaned forward in my chair, whispering, "Come on. Come on, I can make this. Just 1 more hour." But the game had other plans. The footsteps started again, heavy, deliberate, echoing through my headphones until I couldn't tell if it was in the game or in my house. Left side, right side, back to the left. They circled me like sharks. I slammed one door shut. Power dropped to 5%. Checked the light, nothing. Slammed the other door, 4%. The meter was bleeding away with every panicked click, and I knew if it hit 0 before the clock turned, Freddy would be waiting. I sat there, rocking back and forth in my chair, whispering like a prayer, "Please, please, please." Then everything died, the hum of the fan, the flicker of the lights, the buzzing of the monitor, darkness. The screen in front of me went pitch black, and the only thing I could hear was Freddy's music box, that cheerful, twisted little tune echoing through the silence like a funeral march. I froze in my seat, gripping the armrests so hard my knuckles hurt. The music played, slow and haunting, and I just stared into the dark, waiting for it. And then his eyes appeared, 2 glowing white dots opening slowly in the shadows. They blinked once, and then nothing. The music stopped, silence. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. Seconds dragged on like hours, and just as I thought it was over, ding, 6 a.m. The bell rang, cheerful and mocking, and the screen exploded into that jingle of victory. I threw my headset off and laughed, half relief, half insanity. I didn't cheer, I didn't celebrate. I just sat there, gasping, staring at the screen like I'd barely escaped with my life. And here's the truth: I regret ever starting that game. Not because it's bad, no, because it's too good. It messes with your head. It makes you feel like you're not safe, even outside the game. But I did it. I survived. Barely. Safe to say, I am never ever opening 5 nights at Freddy's again. At least, not at night. Unless you want me to try Night 2.